My name is Paul Conrad. I'm a private in the 3rd Battalion of the Pennsylvania Regiment. The 3rd Battalion was formed, as was the 1st, in 1756. And we are wearing the green coats with the green facings, which is a typical British pattern. British pattern uniform with different color facings to be able to determine different units. Ours was green with green. When outfitting the 3rd Battalion, or actually with the regiment as a whole, as Dan had mentioned, the muskets were of poor quality at best. Initially, there were 600 stands of arms that were issued to, or purchased, I should say, by the colony of Pennsylvania for issue to the troops. A stand of arms was a musket, pick it up and hold it sideways. Musket, a belly box or cartridge box, which would hold 18 cartridges, and a bayonet. That was the stand of arms, the standard issue. Some of the descriptions of the guns that were issued were that they were so poor that many of them were rusted or held together with string. Those were purchased from the colony of Massachusetts in 1756. 600 stands of arms, so enough to outfit 600 soldiers. The 3rd Battalion was entrusted to build and garrison Fort Augusta, which is where modern-day Sunbury, Pennsylvania now stands. That was a very strategic location in 1756. It controlled the river system of the upper Susquehanna, and back in the 18th century, river systems were the primary means of transportation. That was the highway system or interstate system of the day. So Fort Augusta was there to control the upper river. It also controlled the trade in the upper river area. The village of Shamokin, which is where Sunbury is now, the Indian village of Shamokin, was a very important trading center and Indian center. Whoever controlled that and protected that controlled the upper end, but also controlled the trade. There was a second fort, Fort Halifax, which is built downstream about 25 miles. Fort Halifax was built as a supporting fort for Fort Augusta, essentially a training center for supplies coming up from Fort Hunter. Once Fort Augusta was finished, Halifax kind of was dropped off a little bit, but for a while our unit had posts between where modern-day Harrisburg is today and Fort Augusta, with Augusta being the largest. Just as a side note, Fort Augusta was the largest of the provincial forts in any of the 13 colonies. It was a wooden frame structure, was 200 feet on the square, and then had palisades leading down to the river. It was a very formidable fort and would have been a very important trading and shipping center of the day. My friend's uniform, if you turn around, he also was wearing the same type of equipment that the 1st would wear. The haversack is kind of interesting because the haversack was the only piece of garment or equipment, clothing equipment rather, that was owned by the Crown. The soldier did not own this bag. It's just a bag. But essentially that is your ration bag. Your rations were filled every 2 to 3 days. That's where you kept your food and foodstuffs in, and you had to turn that back in to be refilled. So if you were on campaign with, say, General Forbes, that would be a Crown-issued bag that belonged to the Crown, it belonged to the soldier. The soldier owned his coat, but he did not own that bag. And one reason you don't see a lot of haversacks in existence from this time period is they probably rotted right out and eventually were turned in and then replaced.